Welcome to dentReviews. Tonight I'm going to be doing a review of the THIEAUDIO Elixer. This, I'm just going to come right out and say, is one of my favorite dynamic driver type IEMs I've ever heard. Now they actually call it a 3D velocity transducer, whatever that is. They claim that they have a special, very firm diaphragm that gives you lots of punchy bass and sub bass and very clear and neutral treble. It does sound like it's a dynamic driver. I'm just going to leave it at that. So, I'm going to show you here the design real quick. It's got an aluminum housing, kind of that standard semi-custom shape that you see on a lot of earphones now. It's got a spin fit tip on here. It's got a metal grill. It's got the bass vent there, and there's one underneath the cable as well. And it's got the right and left ear indicators. It's got a burl wood, I believe, some kind of wood finish on the side here, finished piece of burl wood, I should say, embedded into that aluminum housing. It's very lightweight, it feels durable. It's got a 2-pin connector cable, and it has a nice red indicator for the right earpiece, which is nice, so that you can just pop it back on and know that you're on the right ear. The cable itself is pretty nice cable. It has a smooth rubber coated kind of sort of semi-molded ear guide. It's very flexible though. It just helps keep it over your ear a little bit. Below the earpieces is a single solid cable with a cord cinch, which is pretty loose, but in use it seems to work pretty well. It's got a small centerpiece on the cable, and then just kind of a twisted bottom section. And then the 3.5 connector says THIEAUDIO. It feels well made, and based on the temperature being cool, I think this is aluminum as well. And the stress relief is not that great. Might hold up okay, but I used to make cables and I would do this. This is just basically heat shrinking the cable onto the connector and adding a little bit of relief. But as you can see, bending this, that's not flexing a lot, so the failure point would probably be here. But time will tell. So, well made, feels durable, decent cable, removable, which is nice. Comfortable in the ear. I have no problem wearing these in my ears. So how do they sound? Well, if you want to hop over here, let's go to dentReviews. It's dent.reviews. You can pull up my graphing site, and we can pull these up here. And if you look at my target, dentReviews target, click on that to bring up my preferred target. You can see that the Elixir, if you specifically pick Elixir and then click the little plus symbol, and choose the spin fit option. That is measured with the spin fit tips that I have on here, the medium spin fit tips. With that, it changes the treble shape just a little bit, and your mileage may vary depending on your ear shape and whatever, but these seem to measure the best for me, and they sound the best to me in experience. So I've been using these spin fits. You could also pull up the Kato while we're at it here, and the Kato with the spin fit is also very, very neutral. So if you look at this Elixir versus my preferred target, you can see that on the average it's phenomenally linear. The bass, mids, and treble tonality and balance are superb. Now it's not perfect. You'll see that there's a little bit extra at that 150 Hz region. There's a little bit less at the, let's say, 5 to 9 kilohertz region. So it's not flawless. However, I honestly don't perceive the treble dip to be as strong as it looks on the graph. If you compare it to the Kato, you'll notice that basically the Elixir is almost like the Kato. It almost looks identical with just a slightly clockwise tilt to it, so that bass is tiny bit higher and the treble's a tiny bit lower, but overall the shape is very, very similar. And I do think that is perceived when listening. I think that the bass does have the slightest bit more punch than the Kato, and the treble in the Kato has a little bit more of a precise and fine upper clarity to it. So, which do I prefer? Well, I actually can't say. I think the Kato has been my sort of reference earphone for a while now, especially with these spin fit tips. They sound superb, they're clear, they're smooth, they're very dynamic, and their transients are very, very nice, and it's just a very clean reference tuning that I like. These I actually think sound better below the upper treble. I think the bass impact in the sub bass and the clarity of the bass These just give a little bit more thump and a little bit more of that quality that I like in the lower bass. The mids in the lower treble on these are also more liquidy smooth and have a cooler, more edemotic quality to them. However, the upper treble on these is very refined, and I don't feel it's lacking at all personally. However, compared directly to the Kato does bring out a little bit more sharp and kind of fine precision to the upper treble. Let's say everything above 9 kilohertz per se. And it just gives the Kato a sense of maybe a heightened level of imaging. Instruments sound a little bit wider, just a slight bit wider, and a little bit more sharp, if you will. Like when you sharpen a photograph, sometimes you can sharpen the photograph and details jump out more, but it might not look as natural and smooth. I feel like the Elixir gives you that natural smoothness just a little bit more than the Kato, but the Kato gives you an ever so slight enhanced imaging and spatial width and image placement of the instruments. So I think that I prefer the Elixir because that smooth sound in the mids and the lower treble especially brings out a lot of rhythm instruments, guitars, electric guitars, acoustic guitars, pianos, a lot of stuff that sometimes might come across just a little bit more farther back in the mix. On these, I've noticed those things. They jump out a little bit more and they sound more noticeable without ever sounding louder in the mix, really. They just sound easier to hear with a very nice and clean and smooth quality to them. The treble on the Kato gives me a heightened sense of precision. So very small, nuanced clarity items like drum cymbals and finger noises on guitars. Those things kind of jump out a little bit more on the Kato. But the lower treble comes off sounding a little bit drier and less in your face, comparatively speaking. Very, very, very minor, but less kind of forward than it does on the Elixir. I actually prefer the Elixir and think they remind me more of a nice edemotic quality, whereas the Kato sounds like maybe more like a speaker in a sense because of that treble precision. But it's hard to say. They're both speaker-like in their own ways. These just have a very high-quality, smooth, clear, dark background, and I really, really like the sound. The Kato is very, very similar, but it's just a little bit less smooth sounding to me. My dog's having nightmares back here. Amber, hey, relax. So if I had to choose one, it would be a really hard decision because I like the quality of the smooth overall sound on the Elixir, but I like that extra heightened sense of precision on the Kato. I think they're both phenomenal and they're both similarly priced. These are about $200 online right now. I think that's an excellent deal. I think for the quality that you're going to get, it's hard to beat. You can get some incredibly good values, such as the Moondrop Chew. That's a phenomenal earphone for $20 to $30, but these don't sound as lean and thin, and the Chew has sort of a quality to the treble that is almost, I don't want to say objectionable, but as neutral in reference as they sound, there's just small nibbles in the treble that kind of take it from being that incredible earphone that they could be and make it sound a little bit more budget quality, even though I do think that for the price they easily compete with multi-$100 earphones, easily. But in a direct comparison, the Elixir just sounds smoother and more high quality, more nuanced and more natural in texture and timbre and more silky smooth and basically just more everything. I think they just give that little bit more that would really make it worth the price, in my opinion. If you want something cheaper, yeah, the Chew's great. If you want something at a few $100s, I think the Kato and the Elixir so far are really hard to beat. These are phenomenal. So I highly recommend the THIEAUDIO Elixir. If you have any questions at all, just please leave them below. And as always, thank you guys for watching.